So is your wallet feeling, well, a bit lighter these days? It seems like every time we check the news, right, we're just hit with these headlines about inflation, rising costs. It's easy to feel like the financial currents are just kind of pulling us under. Leaves you wondering, how do we actually navigate this landscape of rising costs and debt and just all this uncertainty? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a really unique perspective on these challenges. It's presented as a sort of battle plan, offering a faith fueled framework. The source calls it kingdom economics. Now, even if this isn't maybe your usual approach, the practical strategies, the insights it offers, well, they seem worth exploring because they promise to pull out some tangible ways to confront these, modern day financial struggles.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is how this framework pushes back against that traditional idea of scarcity. It's really aiming to redefine it into abundance. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack exactly that and show how these specific actionable strategies, what the source calls stones, which is pretty vivid how they can be used against what it identifies as this really formidable four-headed economic Goliath.
Okay, a four-headed economic Goliath. Let's unpack that because honestly, you've probably felt the weight of each one of these heads in your own life somehow. Think of it like a multi-pronged assault on your finances. First up, there's that relentless inflation tsunami. It's that feeling when your grocery cart costs way more than it used to.
So yeah, significantly more.
Exactly. The source highlights grocery bills are up 25% or even more since 2020. And gas, just filling up the tank now costs, what, 50% more for many than a few years back? That's US BLS data.
Wow. And it doesn't stop there, right? There's housing.
Right. The Federal Reserve notes rent now eats a devastating 30 to 50% of income for 1 in 4 Americans.
1 in 4.
Yeah, that's a massive bite out of every single paycheck.
And what often happens when those costs keep climbing, maybe your income isn't keeping pace, is people turn to the second head, the debt trap.
Mm-hmm.
Blending Tree reports credit card rates have soared to like 28.9%.
28.9.
Yeah, the highest ever recorded. It's kind of
It
mind-boggling.
really is.
But it's not just credit cards, is it?
Yeah.
The source really hammers home how medical debt has become this silent crisis, bankrupting, get this, 500,000 people per year. That's according to KFF data.
500,000 people a year.
It's a truly crushing weight for families.
That statistic is, yeah, truly sobering. It just paints this picture of people constantly feeling like they're falling behind. And that brings us right to the third head, wage stagnation.
Right. The paycheck might look bigger.
Exactly. Despite what might feel like nominal raises, Pew data shows real wages, what you can actually buy, are down 3.4% since 2021.
Down 3.4%.
So your purchasing power is actually shrinking. It's like running in place just to, well, stay behind.
And finally, the fourth head. This one's interesting. The source calls it fear propaganda.
Fear propaganda. Okay.
Yeah, it's about how the media often profits from what some people call doom scrolling. The Reuters Institute, for instance, points out that engagement with recession porn, that kind of content, increased by 73%.
73%?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like a cycle designed to keep us anxious, keep us hooked, creating this sense of, I don't know, inevitability about financial hardship.
It is a lot to take in, isn't it? These challenges, they can feel absolutely overwhelming. But what I found really compelling in this source is that it doesn't just lay out the problems. It immediately pivots to, okay, what can we do? So with this Goliath looming, how does the source advise us to fight back?
That's exactly the pivot, yeah. Instead of just feeling overwhelmed by this Goliath, the source introduces what it calls David's $5 stones, kingdom economics. And these aren't presented as just, wishful thinking. They're framed as intensely practical, faith-based strategies designed to sort of chip away at each of those economic pressures.
Okay, $5 stones, I like that. What's the first one?
The first stone is radical prioritization. And the core insight here isn't just about cutting expenses, though that's part of it. It's more about radically redefining what enough means and prioritizing trust over that feeling of scarcity.
Okay.
So the source's tithe-first strategy is central here, which, for those unfamiliar, typically means giving the first 10% of one's income. Now, it makes a bold claim, supported by Barna data, apparently, that tithers actually have 25% less debt.
Interesting statistic.
Yeah. And then on a more maybe universally practical level, it advises a needs versus wants audit, specifically like cutting 3 non-essentials from your budget, maybe a couple of streaming subscriptions or dining out one less time a week. Small things.
That immediately hits home, doesn't it? It really highlights how much impact those small intentional choices can have. And speaking of making the most of what you have, the next stone sounds like it expands on that. Supernatural multiplication.
Exactly. It's all about doing more with less. Our source calls these the $5 miracle tactics.
Okay, miracle tactics. Like what?
Think about cooking bulk meals, for maybe 50 cents a serving. That alone can dramatically shift your grocery budget.
Yeah, definitely.
Or reselling unused items around your house. We've all got that old phone in a drawer, right? Or books we've read.
Oh, for sure.
OfferUp data suggests households average like $483 from doing just that.
483 bucks. That's not nothing.
Not at all. And get this one. Simply planting kitchen herbs, basil, mint, whatever, could save you $600 a year.
Wow. Just from herbs.
Yeah. It's about being resourceful with what you already possess, finding value where maybe you didn't see it before.
Resourcefulness. I like that. What's the third stone?
The third stone is community shields.
Yeah.
The profound insight here is that, true security often comes from leveraging collective effort, relationship-based solutions, rather than trying to go it all alone.
Makes sense. So like what?
Imagine starting a food co-op with, say, 10 families. The source suggests you could save a remarkable 30% on groceries together.
30% is huge.
It really is. Or consider skill bartering, trading services, like haircuts for car repairs, completely removing the need for cash in that exchange.
That's clever, using your network.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that your network is an economic resource.
Okay, so the fourth stone, prophetic provision. This one really sparked my curiosity. It mentions faith-based hustles.
Yeah, the source points to things like launching an Etsy shop selling, say, scripture art, especially given that eMarketer data shows like a 63% growth in Christian merchandise.
Interesting market.
Right. But it's not just about earning more money necessarily. It's also about a different kind of discipline. So another tactic mentioned is Sabbath savings, like implementing no-spend Sundays.
No spend Sundays.
Yeah. To build discipline and also maybe a deeper trust in a different kind of provision beyond just your immediate spending.
Builds discipline and trust. Okay. And the fifth stone.
And the fifth and final stone is eternal investments. The unique angle here is putting resources into things that have like a lasting impact beyond just personal gain and finding an unexpected return in that.
How so?
For instance, funding microloans via Kiva, where even a modest amount, say $25, can help lift entrepreneurs globally.
Right, I've heard of Kiva.
Yeah. And what really stood out to me from the source was the surprising connection it makes between volunteering and mental well-being. The APA apparently links volunteering to 27% lower depression rates during crises.
27% lower.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it suggests this reciprocal benefit, right? Not just helping others, but boosting your own sense of resilience too.
That's powerful. Okay, so we've explored these very practical stones to confront the challenges head on. But what's the deeper philosophy, the overarching blueprint that kind of informs these strategies? Our source doesn't stop there. It delves into what it calls God's economic endgame, exploring the broader principles underpinning this whole framework.
Right, it connects the practical actions to a bigger picture.
So first, there's the Joseph principle.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Ancient wisdom.
Exactly. Using seasons of abundance to prepare for lean times, like the story of Joseph in ancient Egypt. And the specific advice here is really concrete. Start an emergency fund.
Always good advice.
But listen to this insight. Just $500 can block 86% of financial crises, according to the Urban Institute.
86% from just $500.
Yeah. That statistic really feels like a game changer. It means a relatively small buffer can prevent a much bigger collapse for many people.
That's incredible. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it leads to this powerful concept the source calls Babylon's collapse,
Okay.
which frames debt-free living not just as, smart money management, but as a form of spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
like a deliberate act of breaking free from what it sees as economic bondage.
So debt as bondage.
Yeah. The proverb, the borrower is slave to the lender, becomes really central here, highlighting financial freedom as a path to, true liberation.
Okay. And finally, there's this idea of a divine credit score.
A divine credit score. Tell me more.
Well, our source references a specific verse, "My God shall supply all your needs," from Philippians 4.19. And it sort of asserts that God's track record for provision surpasses Wall Street's.
Shifting reliance.
Exactly. It's about shifting where you place your ultimate trust. Acknowledging a source of provision beyond just the conventional financial systems, especially when those systems feel, unstable.
Okay, so that's the endgame philosophy. How does it translate back into immediate action? To bring this all together, the source offers a concrete faith in action, your battle plan. 3 direct steps you could implement, starting like today.
All right, let's hear them.
First, slay fear. The suggestion is pretty practical. Write 3 promises from Scripture like Psalm 37.25, which talks about not seeing the righteous forsaken. Write them right on your debit card.
On the card self.
Yeah, like a tangible visual reminder every single time you reach for it.
That's quite direct. Okay, what's second?
Second, launch stones. The idea is simple. Pick just one $5 strategy to start with today. Maybe it's finally selling that old phone, like we talked about, to fund your next grocery trip. Or maybe cooking that first bulk meal.
Just start somewhere small.
Exactly. The point is, just one small step can create momentum. Start chipping away at that Goliath.
Okay. And the third step.
And third, build altars. This means actively tracking what the source calls miracle money stories.
Miracle money.
Yeah, those unexpected checks that show up, or maybe a sudden discount on a big purchase you needed, or some surprising financial breakthrough. It's about recognizing and acknowledging those moments of provision, building a record of trust, essentially.
Interesting. Tracking the positive moments. So the core message here, it feels undeniably powerful. While inflation shouts scarcity, the cross, from this perspective, screams provision.
Our source really emphasizes that phrase, your faith is the ultimate currency.
Mm-hmm.
It's about cultivating a mindset, it seems, that can thrive even when the world economy feels shaky or uncertain. Absolutely. Which leads to a final thought, maybe something provocative for you listening. Considering these detailed examples of kingdom economics, how might embracing even one of these practical strategies, regardless of your personal beliefs, really, how might that fundamentally shift your perception of control, your sense of resilience in these challenging economic times?
That's a great question to mull over, isn't it? We've thrown a lot of concepts at you today. Fighting the Goliath, launching these 5 strategic stones. Maybe take a moment to reflect. Which stone resonated most with you? Which one felt like, yeah, I could maybe try that? And how could applying just that one small change perhaps ripple out into greater financial stability and maybe even a renewed sense of security for you?